So before we get into this interview, a little bit of housekeeping. Obviously, there are some directors, filmmakers, creatives that can't make it to the festival because it can be a bit of a trek, especially if you're living in America or Spain or Germany or France or wherever. You know, it can be a bit of a trek. So what I decided to do again was to get some pre-recorded stuff done. I got on the old Zoom, StreamYards, whatever people wanted me to get onto, I got onto them. And we did some remote calls, pre-recorded stuff, awesome interviews with some great filmmakers that I can't wait for you to listen to right now. Just because you can't get here, you should still get your Q&A, and it should still be with me because I'm the best one. You're going to be getting a few of these throughout the week, scattered around. This is Nerdly Out Loud, Nerdly TV. We are at Romford, the Romford Film Festival. We love the Romford Film Festival. We're going to continue coming back here every single year as long as they will have us. If you've been living under a rock and you have not seen this, Nerdly has got themselves into a little position where we are in partnership with Shepka Productions, The Baby in the Basket, which is a gothic horror. He's joined up with Flickering Myth to partner up and make this movie, and then they came to us and asked Nerdly to jump on board too. Absolutely, we were going to do that, and we did a crowdfunder. The crowdfunder went amazing. It's still ongoing, so you can go to Kickstarter, type in The Baby in the Basket. I'll put links all over the place. Type in The Baby in the Basket. Give £1, give £10, but only give what you can. We don't want people giving money they don't have. Please do all those wonderful things. Like, subscribe, bell, all of it. Brilliant stuff. Let's get into today's interview, which will be with whoever's in the title. But if you're not at Romford, get yourself there. Get yourself to the cinema. We are showing a smorgasbord of awesome movies. Director Andy Kastelic, the director of a movie called Blue Boy, the movie that is going to be closing the first day of the festival. What a way to close. Andy, how are you tonight?
I'm good. Good to be tuning in across the sea over here. Thanks for doing this interview. Really appreciate you including Blue Boy. Pretty excited to be a part of this festival too. I mean, I don't know if I've ever screened on opening night before there, so it's exciting for me.
Nice. And the movie itself, I mean, I think you know I like it. I've been emailing you, we've been going back and forward. I'm pretty transparent with how I feel about these films. But Blue Boy is just a fantastic film.
Thank you. Yeah.
So before we get into the movie and everything like that, let's jump back a little bit. Let's talk about Andy a little bit.
Sure.
How did this journey start for you getting into filmmaking? And what was it that made you want to do it?
What made me want to do it, I think I had the right combination of, my mom's a librarian, so she's big into stories and literature, and Dad was always bringing home the right kind of, classic movies, everything from Rocky to some pretty obscure things from back in the 40s and 50s. So it was a really nice cocktail there, and it eventually led into high school where there wasn't really a film program going on, and, I'm based out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, and this has become a bit of a hub for a lot of productions coming through, and it hadn't quite hit its stride back when I was coming through high school. So it was kind of just a do-it-yourself program in high school, and that just kind of created a love for all the aspects of it. There weren't too many people doing it, so if I wanted to act in something, that just meant that I had to write and direct it, and that's kind of been my status quo all the way up until now, and it's really created an appreciation for the entire process, everything from pre-production all the way through post, and I've gotten to hone those skills all the way through, and I'd done a little stint in Los Angeles about 10 years ago, and on my return to New Mexico, that's when everything had kind of blown up here, and there was an infrastructure had started here with film, and it really aided in all of the shorts that I had done up till now. So it's been primarily, no, not primarily, it has been shorts up until now, and Blue Boy I think was number 11 or 12, and now I've finished number 15, and that's it for the shorts. So on to the big one now, on to the feature films. So
nice. And what was it in your area that started that boom? Was it a particular project that came to town and blew up?
You know, I think the landscape in New Mexico is definitely has always attracted filmmakers, either if they were trying to do things set in the Southwest, and it doubles for a lot of the the Middle East. I even think some of the contemporary Western shows that are even set in Montana find some parts of New Mexico that can fit that. So that coupled with New Mexico is really always been proud of its incentive program that it offers filmmakers that come through, and it's attracting some of the bigger studios coming through. So I think, yeah, those things coupled up in the last 10, 15 years has really created a boom here, and it's created a little bit of an exodus too from other parts of the country, with actors coming in and actors and a lot of above the line and even below the line people that are coming in because there's a lot of work going on here. So it's a good situation we have going here.
But you were in there before it was cool.
That's right. That's right. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you. Yes. No, and it's getting a little harder to do those things on the independent level. I think some of the city and businesses are getting a little more savvy with how things are going. So it's getting a little more difficult to do things if you don't have some money behind you. And even though I grew up here, that's not necessarily a get out of jail free card anymore. So it's becoming a little more business minded here, and they're catching on to the game. But thank you for noticing. Yes.
Well, I mean, on that you're talking about it's costing a bit more money to get these projects made and everything like that. Your movies, I sat and watched about 3 or 4 after having watched Blue Boy on your website, and your movies look $1 million. Every movie.
Thank you.
Where does your visual style come from?
That's a good question there. I think right in that time that filmmaking was really starting to be something that I was interested. I think I grew up. My mom was playing soundtracks all the time. I was really big into photography. I was almost going to be a photojournalist. I've always been into my family has always been big fans of the Wyeth family, a family of very famous artists in the country. We've always had those prints around the house. So I think it's not just a visual combination of things that kind of gave me that vision. It's kind of all the arts that have done that, and especially growing up around here, a lot of vistas, a lot of open space, a lot of beautiful. I know New Mexico's known for its beautiful sunsets and its mountains, and being able to tap into some of those places, either because I grew up working, in some of those desert landscapes that you see in some of those films. I grew up working out there, for Dad's company. So, giving me part of it's access of where I'm going. Part of it, I think, is just it matches a lot of my. I'd say a great deal of what I've done has a very lyrical style to it. Maybe that's because I'm being confined into a short film space, and so you kind of have to find a different language of how to get some of that stuff across if you're trying to keep it, to a shorter length. So I think, and the great movies. I've heard a lot of people compare some of the stuff to Terrence Malick, and in no way am I comparing it to that. But I find great. There's a lot of resonance in what Terrence Malick does as far as the natural world. And he's also lyrical in the way he does his stuff. I'm not always trying to do. I'm usually not trying to do with what he's doing with his films. I'm a little more plot based. I think there's something to prove a little bit more in the shorts with where I'm trying to be where I'm trying to head. That you can do certain storytelling elements that I think Terrence Malick maybe doesn't care for, doesn't need to care for at this point in his career. He's exploring something different. So a lot of what I have access to, and a lot of the lyrical writing style, I think, is what comes to that visual style. Is what leads to that visual style. That was a long answer. Sorry, Kevin.
No, it's perfect. It's perfect. It's great that you say the artistry in the pictures and things like that, because you could pretty much take any frame from this movie, any of your movies, and stick it on your wall.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I will give some credit to You know, I always say that I'm lucky to have, this is not a plug or anything, I really mean it. You know, I have a great Director Kastelic working the, you know, the hair, makeup, and costumes. That's whatever's going in there. I have a beautiful cinematographer that I worked, I think, 12 times in a row with. So that language, that shorthand, aids, I think, in that that execution of that image too. So I'm getting lucky there. That team has really greased the tracks of what we're doing. So thank you.
So Blue Boy, where did this story come from?
Blue Boy was a collision of quite a few ideas. You know, Blue Boy's a big boxing movie, and I've never boxed in my life, other than with my, you know, younger brother and older brother. But it's not a sport that I ever took part in. However, I think, one, all sports have a certain, if you're serious about it and you're serious about what you're doing, there's a zone that all athletes hit. Either it's pre-game, it's during game, or even after game, where there's this magical something going on in the head, and it's that zone that all athletes know, and not just athletes. There are other, you know, forms of what people do that they can find a zone, but there's something about athletics that can be very visual, that that lend themselves to film very well. So I shared in that the zone that athletes hit, and it's explored throughout the film. And then there's a film noir aesthetic to this whole thing that I love very much, but especially the boxing noir aesthetic, and getting to use the contemporary sporting world, contemporary sporting boxing world, getting to use Las Vegas, and getting to keep deliberately the language of older films. It was kind of just a dream come true to put all those things together, and you know, it came along, I think, in the lineup of films to where we finally had the team where we could do it, finally had the locations that we could kind of cash in on that, and had the right actors for it. I mean, you know, Jack Forcinito, our lead actor, was always going to be Blue Boy, and you had to work through a few projects before we could get there first, and I think the relationship with everyone just timed out just right, so that Blue Boy came right in the lineup, and yeah, so it's a love for that world, even though I've never taken part in that world, but it's a universal in the way people want to win, they want to be champions, lost love, and getting to have that entertainment value to it of being, you know, set in Las Vegas, fight scenes, romance. It was just a whirlwind of everything that I've always appreciated in film. Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't love a good boxing movie?
That's right.
We've had some absolute corkers over the years. Was there any that you maybe looked towards?
Yeah, and especially because it was a noir. Not that noir makes the whole movie or anything, but I specifically looked to the older ones because I liked the way they speak about the sport. There's a romance even in the language of back then, and you can't always get away with that nowadays, because, well, I don't know, I'm still finding out. Either some of those phrases are too antiquated, or they're coming at you too fast, because, you know, back in the heyday of that language, they didn't stop for audiences to understand. I think the lexicon people were just a little more in tune with that stuff, and but I think that's good for modern audiences. So yes, I look to the older things. I look to the setup. The setup was a 30s film, I think, that Scorsese has a great appreciation for. I looked for the Champ with I'm forgetting his name. The Champ. John Voight did a version of it later on, but the original was I want to say Walter Brennan. That's not right. What else did I look to? How the Mighty Fall. Humphrey Bogart's. And that's How the Mighty. And a lot of those. There was a romance for the sport, as there is in most boxing movies. It's kind of why we go see them, I think. Other than that maybe an underdog story or wanting to see someone progress to get to a milestone. But there's a romance to that sport that maybe not all sports have, or maybe I haven't seen them all kind of expressed that way. But yeah, I look to the older ones like that, and maybe for more of the contemporary look things, I was looking for a little more look-wise, things like Melville's The Samurai. I really love, which obviously led to Drive and Chinatown and a lot of saturated films and lighting schemes that I think would lend to the look of the thing, because we're keeping old school language, but I didn't want I just wanted it to be a collision of a lot of noirs across the century. So yeah, but mostly looking to the old school film noir things for language and how they talked about the sport. Yeah,
and all that fits perfectly with your lead man, because that man. I mean, I told you in an email that I sent you. I genuinely feel like you've just you've gotten your phone box from Bill and Ted. You went back to the 40s, 30s, 20s, and you've just brought this absolute golden age superstar back.
Yeah, Jack did his time in Jack's from New Jersey. He did his time in Los Angeles. He's done the stage, he's done the film, he's done the television, and I was lucky enough because he had moved to New Mexico here about 10 years ago, and the very first time I came across Jack, he had auditioned for something, and I didn't cast him, and I've joked with him since that I'm glad that's the way that it went down, because the very first thing that I did use him in, it was an abstract, it was an abstract black and white Western with a lot of things that I just needed an actor to just say yes. I needed a yes man for it. And for a guy who had never worked with me before and had done a lot of, bigger things, he just said yes to that. And 9 movies later, 9 movies straight with Jack. And it was always... Now, there's a guy that could get his head around the language of every film. I tend to maybe lean into a little more elevated language at times, and Jack is always game for it. And with whatever accent he needs, he's always able to get around that language. And especially when it came to Blue Boy, because there are passages in there where there are phrases that you don't say every day. So whether it's being tongue-tied or it's not being there emotionally. For maybe some actors that might have taken it on, Jack is always there for it, and grew the beard for it. Did shaving the head. Jack's always in shape, but he was. I think he had a hernia at the time of the film. Both his shoulders are out, and a real champ in the movie and a champ in real life. So I hope to bring Jack with me onto the future films. So thank you. I'm glad you recognize his talent, and I hope more get around to that in the future too. So,
and you've mentioned a little bit earlier about moving into a feature and everything like that. I see a lot of these movies when we go to these festivals, and I think that's perfect. Like 10, 15 minutes, that's perfect. Blue Boy, I would love to see this expanded. I would love to see you make a feature from this. Is that something you would maybe do?
When I started the shorts, I kind of told myself, no, they're meant to be the shorts, and that's the way they're structured. But as I keep going on, I'm getting a little more feedback like that, and I'm glad to hear that the story. I've often thought it was a downfall that maybe people didn't appreciate the films as much because they thought something was missing to it, and I think I've just come to appreciate more that there's enough organic exposition in there and letting the audience do enough work that they feel there could be more to it, and that it's not that it's not a flaw of the short film, that it's actually a strength, that there's world outside of it, and that people are gravitating to that world. And because Blue Boy it kind of fell in the it fell in a stage where I was experimenting a little bit more with genre-based things. It was pocketed right between 2 other shorts that we'd kind of done triple back-to-back things, and all experimenting with a little more genre-based things. And Blue Boy, I must say, it felt good to do something a little more. I guess I'll let the audience judge, but I meant it to be a little more crowd-pleasing. I meant it to have a little more fast-paced to a little more meat to it, and the entertainment value to it, and it's felt really good with that, and feedback since, I think Blue Boy is definitely something I would expand, because it feels good to be in that world. There's a few gritty drama type things before that. Always trying to elevate him with imagery and not make it feel like it's just another, indie drama, two people talking type of thing. But I'm proud of those things. But it feels good to expand that a little more and seeing Blue Boy on the big screen. That's really aided me in thinking that I might take one of those more genre-based things and expand it into a feature, especially having Jack with it and some of the other key players in the film. Obviously, those locations might want a little bigger paycheck next time I come around, but that's a part of the thing. They're doing me favors as I get through to maybe when I roll back through to have a bigger budget and I look forward to that. I look forward to being able to have a bigger paycheck for people across the board. So ultimately, Kevin, yes, I would love to expand Blue Boy.
Well, you kind of have to expand a little bit on Balak's suit because what a character.
Yeah, it's something like that. I think there are characters in Blue Boy that you want to see more of, and that's that's why it lends itself to a feature. And Lorri Oliver, local here in New Mexico. All the actors are local here to New Mexico, and Lorri was Lorri was a last minute cast, and I just went down to her house one afternoon, sat with her, talked the themes and aesthetic of the whole thing, and she pretty much just said, I'm there and I got it. I don't have any questions. Let me do my thing. And put her in wardrobe. She showed up, and it was a true just kind of collaboration going back and forth on the day. I mean, it was an actor doing their prep work. It was an actor having the sense of what the film was before I really needed to describe it. And that's obviously it's leaning on some of the things that have come before it. But I think it was, I can't remembering who it was said now, because I think I had warned an actor, I'm not going for derivative here. I'm not going for pastiche. Yes, I'm honoring some of the aesthetics that have come before it. But he said was, it doesn't matter if you're leaning on any of those things as long as you mean it. It's not going to come across as an imitation if you mean it. And that's why I had no problem with her. She went full force with the accent. She, with the fur around, she had a sex appeal. She has a sexual tension with Jack. She has, and it's a character that I would want to know more of. And I'd only really seen just a demo from Lorri, and she'd done things all over the world and done a lot of stage work. So again, another actor who could get around the words and not make it feel like she was acting and hadn't quite figured out how to certain subtext or nuances or anything. So and she was was also a character of who got to say some things and that I'd heard real people say before. About cutting cats' tails off with a linoleum knife and I think she even spit some Shakespeare in there and I think just a very strong and normally we see a lot of managers boxing managers it's a I'm going to assume it's still a male driven world as far as maybe training at least on the male end and I think it was refreshing to have a female running the show because they bring a way different almost sharper danger to it, and it makes for me it made for a way better climax. A female with all the power coming at Blue Boy there. So there's a character who I would really love to have seen throughout the film, and it's structured in a short film. I think it was nice to kind of have this climax reveal of who we've been talking about through the film, but. Definitely a character I'd like to see expanded on a feature. I'm glad you appreciate her. I'm glad you appreciate what we were after with her.
She's just a great character.
Yeah.
And then when people come out of the cinema, when people come out of watching Blue Boy, what is your hope that they take away from the movie?
That's good. Having an appreciation, and I had a long conversation with my cinematographer before we made the film, because I wasn't sure if the zone, which was something that was even maybe explored a little bit in Disney's Soul. About a year later, when I saw it, I saw that they were connecting with a little bit of the same, and they're musicians in that movie, and they hit this zone. And for people who aren't athletes, and it's not like they can't imagine what I'm talking about with being in the zone with pre-game, but there's something that I always connect with in a film with athletes when they're prepping for something, and one to maybe just. Not to completely understand or have an appreciation for, but maybe just to think a little bit more on the prep work for athletes and the kind of zone that they hit when they go into something, and hopefully that will maybe transfer into artists before they're going into something. I know that people have a major criticism of artists, and they like to give them whatever kind of art field you're in. There's this zone when maybe you're a little people can't take you at that time, or they're very being judgmental of a process or something, and just to give a second thought to how people are prepping for something. I'm sorry, that's a very muddled answer because I wasn't ultimately. It also translates to how I feel as an artist. Bobby's character in the film is an up and comer, but he's just getting beat down with how they're using him in the system, and they're just using him as a I don't know if journeyman is the right term. Journeyman being someone that you use to elevate others.
Yeah, like in wrestling terms, he's a jobber.
Okay, yeah, and he's sick of that, which is why he doesn't play by the rules in that, because a lot of the gatekeepers of the system are not doing their job in his eyes. Obviously he's going to think that because he's not making it. But that's how I feel, and it's how a lot of people around me feel. Is they're putting in the work, they're paying their dues, and they're just not quite hitting where they want to be success-wise or career-wise. And that's because a lot of the art world, especially the entertainment industry, is a lot about luck, and it's a lot about who you know and who you're pleasing at the time, and it's a hard system to navigate. So that definitely, because it's been a while since I've played sports, but so I think it was an expression of a lot of that, and for people to think how the system is working, in the art world and the sports world, and ultimately I'm coming at it from a romantic. So I would always like to say I hope that everyone coming out of one of the films that we're making just. They hug their wife, girlfriend a little harder. They hug their kids a little tighter. And even though they may be hard dramas or whatever they are, to just come out loving just a little bit more and appreciating what they have. So whether they're really their children or not. So yeah, because at the end of it, I would like it to be optimistic. So and I think Blue Boy does have an optimistic ending. So
it does, and it's. I don't want to do spoilers or anything like that, but
no, sure.
At the start of the movie, you kind of feel like Blue Boy's a little bit down on his luck, and then all the things that happen, it doesn't necessarily happen. It doesn't finish the way you want it to, but it's hopeful.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's something that I've leaned on for the last 5 or 6 films, and I really agree with it. I think I had a screenwriting teacher say. Some of the best endings for things can be a character doesn't get what he wants, but the character doesn't get what they want, but they get what they need, and if done correctly, I think it sometimes it's bittersweet, but I think a lot of the time it does make for the better ending, and not that I can always follow that, but I think Blue Boy definitely has that, and. I'm glad you appreciate the ending on the structure of how that goes down. So yeah.
So we're going to start wrapping it up.
Sure.
Because I've taken far too much of your time.
I rambled. I enjoyed the conversation though. Yeah,
no, man, I could sit and speak to you forever. But yeah. So we'll start wrapping that up now. But first of all, what are you doing next? Obviously, you're talking about moving into the features. Is there anything you can tell us about that, or are you keeping it all to your chest?
with 15 shorts in, you know, part of it was the major part of it was just there were stories I wanted to tell first and foremost. Second, it formed a portfolio of 15 different, you know, styles and looks, and working with all the, you know, the best people around here in New Mexico, and getting the workflow, you know, nice and greased, and having an appreciation and understanding of how all things work. Boom. That was what the shorts were for. So next, it's, you know, it's kind of hand in hand. I was hoping to find some representation going forward with directing, while at the same time shopping 3 scripts around. And you know, the biggest one that I've been shopping around is there was a great expelling of all Mexican Americans from the U.S. in 1954, after we had imported legally a great many thousand of them to help with the post-war farming world. And in the 50s we kicked them back out, and it was a massive operation called Operation Wetback here in the country, and it hasn't been explored too much. So basically, I'm pitching, hey, while everyone's being expelled in the 50s, a Mexican nun has to come into the country to track down some money that was left to her by her brother, who was working as a bracero in Texas. And the bracero program was the program where they had brought them all in under legal circumstances. And so I've always, you know, had an appreciation for the historical epics, you know, sweeping historical epics, and it has a little bit of that. Yeah, and it's, you know, it has a little bit of it has a thriller aspect to it. It has a romance aspect to it. It has the historical aspect to it. And I would hope to work with some real, you know, powerhouse actors on there. And I know it's a lot to ask usually for people on their first features, but I think the story is big enough and important enough to maybe attract someone that would, you know, lend their talent and their name to it. So that's a big one that I've been going forward with, and it's taken a lot of research. And I live within, you know, pretty close to it. I mean, the entry point was El Paso, Texas, and that's only 4 hours away from me. So, and a lot of those places, you know, boarding houses and farms that took part in that program are still around here, you know, and a lot of them have been untouched by the years, because they're under you know, protection by the state. And so I think the resources are there for that, and you know, just cleaning up the script, making sure that it pops, that it's not you know, that it hits in all the right points, and that's the one that I'm leading with. And I think the visual styles up until now will lend to that. You know, 50s Texas, New Mexico, a lot of the Southwest California. So yeah, that was a long answer. Jeez, that was not an elevator pitch necessarily, but you know, I feel pretty passionate about that one, and I hope to carry a lot of the team with me on that one. So that's the one I'm leading with. Yeah.
You never know who's watching these things, so give the elevator.
There you go.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, yeah.
We're going to be showing a lot of films at the Romford Film Festival, and people are going to be seeing Blue Boy, which I'm hoping that everybody turns out for. And some of them will be sort of trying to get into the industry, trying to get into the filmmaking game. What one piece of advice would you potentially give someone looking to do that?
You know, this answer, I always fear that this answer makes me come off, that there's a pretense to this answer or an arrogance to answer. I really don't mean that, but I've come across several filmmakers here in the last couple of years who have jumped to, they've had the resources, of they've had the money behind them to either jump right to a feature or jump to a very high stakes short with having never done anything before. And you know, sometimes maybe they do have the talent, maybe they do have the know-how, and they've seen enough movies to be able to do that. You know, some people are able to do that right out of the gate. However, I think there are more things to appreciate in the process of making a film, doing it lower, not lower stakes, but lower scale, and that means not hiring out for everything. You know, I've seen filmmakers in their, you know, their 7th and 8th short and maybe going on the features that really have never touched an editing system before, or sat in or on an editing session before. And that's, you know, editing is backbone of how films work, you know. So my piece of advice would be to almost just to really do a short film or a short film project or whatever it is, and do all the things yourself, so that even if you have no skill for them, you have a rudimentary understanding of how to speak to the people that you're hiring and that you're delegating to. And I think you'll have a much richer product because of that. And there are a lot of filmmakers out there that they don't necessarily, you know, established high profile filmmakers that don't necessarily do everything, but how they speak to people with such intelligence and kind of training and experience on those things makes for a much richer and higher end and longer lasting film, I think. So just do it all yourself. That would be my big. Even if you have the budget to hire out for them, do one just for you. No one has to see it. It doesn't have to go anywhere. But just so you know what you're talking about, you know, or just so you have a better appreciation for. So that'd be my advice there. Yeah.
I like that.
Thank you, Kevin.
So before we finish up, do me a quick favor and make my job a lot easier.
Sure.
Let people know where they can find you. Just sort of pimp yourself out a little bit, and why they should check out Blue Boy.
Yeah. Okay, everyone. Andy Kastelic, based in Albuquerque, New Mexico for now. Looking to expand. We'll see where we go. My working contact is kind of all centralized at www.andykastelic.com. We'll look for you there, and you know, enjoy all the films at the festival. You know, if you're looking for, you know, a little mix of the romance and the boxing and the aesthetic and something a little fresh on the language end, go check out Blue Boy, and we hope you enjoy and hope you guys have fun out there in Romford. So thank you.
I think they will, because this movie's awesome.
Booyah. Thank you, Kevin. And thank you for the questions, Kevin. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Neon. Ain't nothing but the glow of sad, wasted hearts.
Round one coming up. They listen quietly, almost without interest, to a story they know by heart.